All right, what's going on everyone, and welcome back. So today I'm gonna be solving a problem that I've been battling the 4+ years I've been in this shop. And that is, I need more power. All right, so it's not that I need more power, it's just that I need power in better locations. My shop's got plenty of power, but as I've been in this shop, a lot of my larger tools have gravitated more towards the center of my shop, and I've been making kind of more of dedicated work zones, like combining my planer and my joiner together. My table saw has always been further from the wall, and I've always had to drape a cord across the ground and plug it into the outlets that are on the wall. And that drives me nuts. But today I'm gonna be installing what I'm gonna call a power post. So I'll be running a 120 volt circuit and a 220 volt circuit, and I'll be placing 2 of these kind of strategically in my shop. And just like 90% of my projects go, they start off as a very basic idea that should only take me an hour or 2 to complete, and then quickly evolve into something more complex. Now these posts are no different. I originally planned on just using these leftover 4x4 posts. I was gonna stand those up, surface mount a couple boxes, run some conduit, wire them up, and boom, have a couple power posts. But hey, this is brew build, so let's do something a little nicer. So these 4x4 posts have been sitting in my shop for about 4 years, so they're nice and bowed. So I'm gonna start off at my joiner and my planer and get these trued back up so they're nice and square. I find starting with something square to begin with makes it a lot easier throughout the rest of the process. My shop ceiling is just over 10 feet, so I needed to make that 10-foot post a little bit taller, so I used a couple offcuts of a pressure-treated 2x4 to give me the additional length. I need to secure this post to the floor, and I also need to frame it out to give it an 8" by 8" footprint. To do that, I'm gonna be using a ram set tool and some more of this pressure-treated lumber. All right, to give these posts a more girthy appearance, yeah, I said girthy, a larger appearance, I'll be cutting strips of this 3/4 inch plywood. So these are roughly 1.5 inches wide, and then I'll be cutting them down in the miter saw to give me that 8 by 8 footprint that I want. Now using my plywood, I'll be making a box around this post, and I'll just be securing the plywood with glue and brad nails. All right, with the power pole frame now constructed and erected it into position, it's time to run the power for these 2 pieces of equipment. So my joiner runs off 240 volt and my planer is 120 volt. And I've got those 2 voltage sources available and nearby up in my ceiling. I've got an existing 240 volt receptacle that powers up my air filter and a 120 volt receptacle that's for a future garage door opener that'll be pulling the power from my planer. So I'll be running 2 separate runs of a number 12 Romex to each of those desired locations to pull power from, running them down the pole, and then I'll be putting my outer sheathing on this pole and then cutting in my receptacle boxes and getting this project moving on. To temporarily secure the OSB in position, I used some brad nails, but then came back with some 1¼ inch screws to permanently fasten it. I also used this 1/4 inch plywood to space the OSB off the concrete floor. With the OSB secured to the posts and all my electrical boxes cut in, I then used a flush trim bit in my router to clean up all the corners. And at the same time in this project, I thought I'd just be painting these, but after seeing them, I figured I could make them look a little nicer. So I went down to my local lumberyard and I got this pine tongue and groove for about $1 a square foot. So I grabbed a handful of that to finish these posts in. So there's really not a whole lot to installing this tongue and groove, at least in this application. I just simply used brad nails and made sure to stagger my seams so it looked more natural. And then just using a Forstner bit and my router, I recut in the electrical box holes. And again, with a flush trim bit in my router, I cleaned up all the corners of the tongue and groove, then just reinstalled my power receptacles, and then came back with a pull saw and cut off any of the excess tongue and groove that my router wouldn't reach. Along with making it more convenient to power my tools, these posts will also be great for supporting the vertical duct runs for the dust collector that I'll be installing. And like I said, I was gonna be making 2 of these, one for my planer and joiner workstation, and then another for my table saw. Now the one for the table saw was built the exact same way, so I'm not gonna re-show you that whole process. I think you get the picture. These have worked out awesome. And a couple things I want to address is, I got a lot of comments as far as people saying, why don't you just use those extendable drop-down power cord reels? And those are great over a workbench or something you're gonna plug a sand or something basic into. These require 2 different voltages, so I'd have to have 2 of these for each of my locations. I also don't plan on needing to retract that cord. These are permanent. My tools aren't gonna be moving. So this was a better option for me, and it was a lot cheaper for me to do. Those cord reels are pretty expensive if you get ones that are of high quality. So normally this is when someone would ask you to like and subscribe, but I'm going to ask you to grab a broom because the shop's not gonna pick up itself. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Next time on Brew Builds.